the Spin Cycle. Today, I am on with a very special guest all the way from the great city of Chicago. Can I say your Instagram name?
Please feel
Okay,
free.
Jewish Jonah, the famous Chicago Cubs vendor. Jonah, thank you so much for coming on the Spin Cycle.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here and talk all things vending and cups.
Yes, sir. So, for you guys that are just listening, the audio, you can't see, but I do have my Cubs jersey on. I haven't had a new Cubs jersey since Jake Arrieta. That's who I have on my back right now. So, still my favorite Cubs player, other than I think probably Sammy Sosa. Obviously, he's the Cubs player everyone likes. Correct?
Yeah, of course. I had a Carlos Zambrano jersey for much of my young adult life,
Yes.
and then I graduated to Chris Bryant. But I don't make it to as many games as a fan anymore, so
Yeah.
the jersey only gets a few wears each year.
Yeah. I remember. Gosh, that was a blast from the past. Carlos Zambranos. I remember. He would just want to fight like literally everybody when he was on the
Especially
pitch.
Gatorade coolers.
Yes. Yes. And then whenever Chris Bryant finally got brought up from the minors, it was like that was everybody's favorite player on the Cubs. Like, you know how back in 2016 when the Cubs were actually good, we won the World Series, you could tell if they were actual Cubs fan or not because if their favorite Cubs player was Chris Bryant, they probably just started liking them that year.
Yeah, that's generally how to spot a bandwagon fan. However, we don't discriminate bandwagon fans.
No,
We accept all types of fans in the Cubs organization.
correct. And gosh, I'm just sitting here thinking I haven't thought about that for a while, but how old are you, Jonah?
I'm 26.
Okay, so I'm 25, so we're about the same age. Uh, I can remember in high school, man, it'd be baseball season. I'm from Southern Indiana, so all my friends were either Reds fans or Yankees fans. You know, you always have Yankees fans somewhere. And
Always.
the Cubs were absolutely horrible. It was one of those years where they just could not win a game. And then finally, we had that. What was the manager's name? I forget it now. Joe Madden.
Joe Madden and Theo Epstein really was the
Yes.
pioneer. It was the Ricketts buying the Cubs, hiring Theo, bringing on Joe Madden, and the rest is history.
Yes. And finally, we had a great year. And I thought we were going to have these guys forever. Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez. And then all of a sudden, poof, they're all gone now. So
Yeah,
it's crazy how in that moment you're like, oh my God, we're the champions. And then the next year it's like, what happened? Where's the dynasty?
yeah. You know the phrase, "Don't you wish you knew it was the good old days when you were in them?" That's kind of how I feel about that 2016 team. Although I guess at the time I kind of did have that feeling that it was the good old days. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean we got one, and that's a lot more than some of our relatives and ancestors can say. So
Oh,
I'm
definitely.
content.
Yeah. And then also talking about the good old days, my brother's a huge hockey fan. He's a Blackhawks guy. Back whenever I was in high school, the Blackhawks won like 3 out of the 4 years they won the Stanley Cup. And I just remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, yeah, the Blackhawks were the champions. Now we suck. And then now the Bulls, they're kind of in this no man's land. And I see your Bulls shirt back whenever it was like Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, Luol Deng, all those guys. It was like, hey, this is the good old days. That tragic day back in, I think it was like 2013. Derrick Rose tore his ACL. We've never been the same since. So Chicago sports kind of in general, other than I think the Chicago Sky and the WNBA won a championship not too long ago, it's kind of been Bears, obviously. Yeah, here's another one. We kind of been in no man's land. We haven't really been in the front face of sports, have we?
Yeah, there's been a little bit of a decline of the past few years in Chicago sports after we brought home a couple titles. But that's kind of the nature of it. And I have a lot of excitement for this upcoming fall at Soldier Field. We will see. It's like the first time in maybe 5 or 6 years that I've been like actually excited for a Bears season. Right after the double doink, I
Uh,
basically went into a Bears depression. So
yes.
we're approaching hopefully the good old days of the Bears. But we'll see, I guess, in the first week of September.
I definitely think the Bears are going to be something special this year. I'm not expecting them to be like a full fledged juggernaut like the Kansas City Chiefs or the Bills or anything like that. But it seems like the Bears have their guy in Justin Fields. You know, they traded all that number one pick for all those picks in the future. They traded it for what was his name? The wide receiver that the Bears got. I forget his name. They got him from the
DJ
Panthers.
Moore.
DJ Moore. I thought they were going to take Jalen Carter. They traded down with the Eagles.
I
No,
also thought they were going to take Jalen Carter, but
yes.
I trust the front office.
Oh,
Now
see,
we'll give this group a shot.
and I'm so glad you said that because I'm so tired of, and I'm like this too. I always voice my opinion on social media. I'm a sports guy, so you know how it is. But I hate whenever people like will just tweet or post on Facebook like, "Oh my god, I can't believe the Bears," or like the Colts because that's my favorite team. I like the Bears too, but I can't believe the Colts took this guy. I can't believe the Bears took this guy. It's like, well, obviously you're not part of the organization. You weren't scouting them. You haven't been watching them all year. There's a reason why they picked them. Now Chicago, like I told my brother, they haven't had a lot of luck these past couple of years, especially I think didn't they pick Mitchell Trubisky at like number 2 not too long ago?
Yeah, that's a sore subject that we don't really love to think about.
Oh,
But
okay,
yes,
okay. My bad, my bad. So hopefully it's a lot of upcoming in Chicago right now. I know supposedly the Blackhawks are supposed to get a top 5 pick this year in the draft in the NHL. Hopefully they get I forget his last name, but his first name's Connor, that hockey player that like everyone wants who's gonna go like number 1.
yeah, there's also a guy in the NBA too, Victor Wembanyama, that everyone wants at number one. So we're hoping that somehow the Hawks can get our guy there, and the Bulls win the lottery. It's going to be incredibly unlikely, but if
Yeah.
we do, uh, man, it'll be
I
fun to watch.
I think I saw see the Bulls owe their first round pick to the Magic whenever they traded Wendell Carter Jr. a couple of years ago. So the Bulls have to get a top 4 pick for it to go back to them. And the Bulls' chances of getting a top 4 pick is like 1.8%. So I don't think we're going to get that pick this year. But if we just so happen to get 1 through 4, you'll probably hear me scream from Chicago because I will be ecstatic. And then hopefully there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with the Bulls organization.
Yeah, I mean, this new ownership is and leadership is not ownership. Sorry, this new leadership is relatively new, and I'm still going to give them a couple of years. I haven't lost faith in the management or the coach, but they're on thin ice with me as of
Yes.
this past season.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it kind of sucks because I feel like we have that front office that doesn't want to spend money in free agency, but they also like they were really hesitant about signing Zach LaVine not too long ago. And then it was like Zach LaVine didn't want to be in Chicago, and they were like, "Oh wait, we want you. Like, we'll just throw some money at you to have you come back." And it's kind of like he's not playing like he doesn't want to be there anymore. So I posted on my YouTube Shorts the other day a couple of trade ideas that I thought would happen in the offseason. I had Zach LaVine, I think, going to like or was the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green. I wouldn't hate that, but I also love Zach LaVine as a player. My wife got me his jersey not too long ago, so I don't want to return it to Fanatics to get his different jersey because that's my only Bulls jersey that I have other than Michael Jordan.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm a Zach believer. It's the dynamic between him and DeMar is interesting because both of them kind of have to be the guy. But I fully trust Zach. I think he played with after the All-Star break. He played with a new head of steam and was just attacking the bucket. The Bulls need a healthy Lonzo Ball and a point guard that can make threes and then also dish the rock. We need a lot of things. I think Andre Drummond could be our starting center. And all I want is for them to re-sign Io because he's my guy. I went to the University of Illinois, so I'm a big Io fan. Clearly, you see me wearing a
Yeah,
Io DeSumo Bulls shirt.
obviously, man.
But yeah, right now I'm fully invested in baseball season. It's too early to get worked up about our upcoming Bears and Bulls seasons. So
Yeah,
it's Cubs time for me.
obviously, yeah, man. So that's a great segue. So l- let me get to know you a little bit, Jonah. So are you originally from Chicago?
Yeah, I grew up in the north suburbs, about a 40-minute drive north of Wrigleyville. And then I went to school at the University of Illinois in Champaign, a couple hours south of Chicago. And right after I graduated in 2019, I moved straight down to Wrigleyville and have been living here for 4 years.
Wow. So like, was that like a plan all along? Like, what did you go to school for at Illinois?
Yeah, I studied marketing and information systems at the Geese College of Business. And then I worked in sports marketing right out of college at a sports marketing agency in the Chicagoland area for a few years. And then went into the startup world, which we'll touch on a little further
Yeah.
down the road. But I always had the dream of living in Wrigleyville, a diehard Cubs fan. My folks and I would drive down to Wrigley a number of times each year when I was living in the suburbs and when I was a kid, just to come down to Cubs games. So to be able to live within walking distance of the stadium was kind of a dream for me, and I executed on that right after college. And you can catch me just a few minute walk now away from Wrigley, which is very convenient because I also work there.
Yeah. So let me just say this. For all of you guys, I should have said this in the beginning, but Jonah is, I think you have what, like 500 followers on your Instagram right now?
Instagram's like 8,000. It's kind of
Oh, okay. So
exploded
it's
recently.
exploded. Okay. So since I
Yeah.
looked at it,
And
yeah.
yeah, the TikTok's at almost 17,000 now.
Gosh dang. Okay. So I had no idea. So he's really exploded in the content, kind of world and Instagram and TikTok. I found him by accident literally not too long ago because I think Instagram, the algorithm knew I was a Cubs fan. So it was like, here's some Cubs content for you. Um, how did you get to become a vendor for the Chicago Cubs?
It's a great question. So the summer of 2015, I had just graduated high school and I had nothing to do over the summer. So a couple of my buddies and I were like, it would be kind of cool to try to work at Wrigley. And one of my friends' dads used to vend back in the day, 30, 40 years ago. And as you know, with vendors, especially at Wrigley, they don't really leave because it's such an amazing job. So my buddy's dad still knew the people that were running the whole vending operation. So he put us in contact with them, and I sent them an email and I was like, hey, I just graduated high school. I'm about to go off to college, but I have nothing to do this summer. I'm a huge Cubs fan and I would love to work for you if you guys need help seat vending. And pretty soon after that, maybe the next day, I got an email back saying, we actually do need help seat vending this season. You're hired. Like no interview, no anything. It was nice to have that recommendation from my buddy's friend,
Yeah.
excuse me, my buddy's dad. But they hired myself and two of my friends, and all, three of us were living in the suburbs. And then we would commute down to Wrigley every game we would commute down to Wrigley a number of times during the season. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up working like 20 games or so my first year once I started that summer. But the rest is history. I've been doing it since. This is my ninth season. Well, eighth season technically because of COVID, but ninth season that I've been employed.
So did you work at Wrigley while you were in college?
I did. Yeah. So not the regular season games, but in 2015, the Cubs made the playoffs and
Mm-hmm.
had a home playoff game. And living in Champaign, only 2 hours away, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to take the drive up and work the Cubs Cardinals playoff game where they clinched and went on to the NLCS in 2015. I did not come up for the two Mets games in the NLCS. I only worked that one playoff game that year. But in 2016, obviously the Cubs made a run all the way to the World Series, and it worked out so nicely scheduling wise because every weekend the Cubs somehow had home playoff games. So 3 or 4 weekends in a row, I would get in my car after class on Thursday afternoon. I would drive the 2.5 hours from Champaign to where I'm from, and I'd stay with my folks in the suburbs and would go to Wrigley and then the Cubs playoff game. And then after the last game of the weekend, I would drive straight from Wrigley all the way back down to Champaign to make it for classes on Monday.
Gosh. So a really busy schedule while you were in college. I did not realize that you have been a Cubs vendor that long and you worked through college, which just makes it even more impressive and how long you've been doing this. I feel like I should be talking to like a 60-year-old with the way you talk about vending for the Cubs.
Yeah, I love it. Sometimes my body feels like a 60-year-old after working a couple games. But the one thing I will note is that there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the games you actually work. So you can kind of show up when you want. There's just like a minimum number of games that we need to hit throughout the season. So like in September during the regular season games, I wouldn't come up every weekend to work. I would just go to school and be a college student. But I figured I had to make it back for the playoff games, especially because I'm a diehard Cubs fan. So it's kind of a no
Obviously.
brainer for me. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, what's your favorite thing about being a Cubs vendor?
Oh, there's so many. I think my favorite thing is just like being able to call Wrigley my office. I I'm can't really emphasize like Wrigley's place in my heart, but for some reason, and I know a lot of other Cubs fans have this, like you walk up the steps from the concourse onto the field, to the field level, and it's just like everything kind of goes silent, just like you can imagine and really feel the beauty of Wrigley. I wrote my college essay about Wrigley Field, and it's just to be able to work and go to games. Now I'm doing like 50 or 60 games a summer. Um, it's been really unbelievable for me. And then the other thing is just like the people. I've met some amazing vendors, especially that have been there for 50 years. And that's part of the reason why I started making content was to, learn their stories and share their stories with people. I've met some other younger vendors who are some of my best friends. I've gotten invited to their weddings. And the interactions with the fans every day it's priceless for me. It's so much fun just having 30-second to 1 minute conversations while I'm selling a group of dudes a couple beers or a
Mm-hmm.
hot dog to a family. Um, it's it's really just such a special place, and I've really been fortunate to be able to work there for as long as I have. And I think it's only going to get more fun the longer I'm there and the more relationships that I make.
So, I find it so interesting that on some of the content that you post, you get like a couple of people recognizing you while you're vending the Cubs games. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I started posting videos 1 week before opening day this season. And even by opening day, I had three people recognize me on the first Cubs game of the year, from the TikTok videos. So it was pretty wild. I didn't really expect it to kind of have the momentum that it did right when I started posting. But now I cannot go to the game without getting recognized like a dozen times. Some of the people that follow me on social media will ask to take photos with me. I just got my first autograph request, which was fun. I need to come up with like a clever signature. I was not prepared for that.
Man, I
But
bet
yeah,
that was crazy.
the response has been awesome. It has been so fun for me. I'm just glad people are enjoying the content. Everyone's been super friendly and positive. And now, with my goal of kind of featuring some of the older vendors and other guys that I work with, they are starting to get recognized from my social media videos. So these old guys who barely know how to operate a phone, when someone goes up to, like, they'll go, "Hey, Uncle Ronnie, I saw you on TikTok." They have had so much fun the past few weeks. They've said that it is fabulous, the
Ah,
recognition that they're getting. So it's been really just such a positive month, and I'm hoping to continue that traction and positive energy as the season rolls on.
well, that's so cool that you feature all those old vendors. One of the guys I think you posted about today, he'd been doing it for like how long was it, like 20 or 30 years? He's been a vendor for the Cubs.
Yeah, so it ranges from 1 week of being a vendor. I haven't posted the brand new guys yet, but some of the guys have been vendors for a week, and the longest standing vendor has been there for 60 years.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so there are a number of people that have been there for half a century, um, and those are the ones that I wanted to prioritize interviewing, and really the people that have the history and all those stories, and kind of give a platform for them to share their stories with everyone, because 50 years at the most historic stadium at America's pastime sport, you have experienced a lot. And for me, it's been really fun to kind of get to know their background and get to know the older vendors a little better.
I think it's been I think it was 2014 or 15, the last time I was at Wrigley Field. And like you said, whenever you first get there and you see the field and you see that green ivy on the back wall, I don't know, it just feels so surreal. I'm a huge Cubs fan. I always have been. So maybe that's why it feels a little bit different. We're actually going to be going to Wrigley Field. My buddy is getting married in July, and his bachelor party, we're going to Chicago. We're going to a Cubs game. It's the Cubs Reds game. So I'll wear my Cubs jersey. My brother's going to wear his. We're going to be the only Cubs fan within 13 guys who are all Reds fans. So, but we're going to our home turf. So hopefully we don't get in a fight. They get in a fight with the Cubs fans.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll be on the lookout for you guys first of all. But luckily, there's not a whole lot of animosity between Cubs fans and other fans. I actually haven't really seen in my 8 or 9 years doing this. I don't know if I've seen a fight between
Well,
fans.
that's funny you say that because I saw a video the other day, and you've probably seen it too. It was like the tale of two. It was like the tale of a city, two tales of a city. And it was the Cubs game, and it was like, have you seen that video where that guy's like he wants that girl's number, so they pass up the phone to him, and he gets
Oh
the
yeah,
number,
great video.
and then it cuts to the next part of the video, and it's at the White Sox, and these girls are just throwing haymakers right in the middle of all the fan section. So I agree. Wrigley Field is not very chaotic. Now I say that now the next time you vend, you're probably going to get in a fist fight with a guy trying to steal some hot dogs from you. But I don't think I've ever seen a fight there. It about the I've been there 4 times total. I've never seen a fight the 4 times I've been there to Wrigley.
Yeah, the number one rule for me when I go as a fan, I usually sit in the bleachers. There are two things. One, no fighting in the bleachers. That's a big rule that we all need to live by. And two, right field sucks. I'm a big left field bleachers guy.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So did you have a certain reason why?
I don't know. I think I just like the action of trying to catch home runs, and always feels like righties are more prone to hitting it out to left center as opposed to right center. But I don't know. I'm just a left field bleachers guy. I
Yeah.
can't really explain it, but there's a nice friendly rivalry between left field and right field bleacher fans for sure.
So I've actually never sat in the bleachers before. The I've been to Wrigley 4 times. So one time it was for a wedding, and I actually got to sit like in that little clubhouse way in the back. It was like on the wall where you get to watch the game from right there. One of the other times it was right behind home plate, and then a couple other times I forget it was just like spread all throughout the field. But I would like to sit in the bleachers one day. The only thing that sucks, and this is just a me problem, those bleachers don't have any back support, so I just feel like your back would hurt the whole time. Is that true?
Yeah, it, it's definitely like I see people bringing cushions to sit on and bringing like those chairs that you can kind of unfold and
Yes.
recline in. I have never done that. I probably should. But luckily the vibe in the bleachers is so positive that
Yeah.
you generally it's not a huge deal just sitting without back
Well,
support.
it's kind of like going to a concert. We have this area next to us in Indiana. I forget they change the name every year, but you can buy an actual like numbered seat, or they call it the yard. You can go sit like in the yard, and there's no seats. You buy like a general admission ticket, and then you go sit in there, and that's where the vibes are. Everyone else that's in like the numbered seats, they're just there to sit down, drink, have a good time. So that's why I want to go sit in the bleachers, because I feel like I want to get that one experience, just like a mosh pit almost. You just got to experience it once while you're going to it.
Oh, the bleachers are a special place at Wrigley. The general admission seats are wonderful, and they become comfortable after a couple Bud Lights are in your system.
So, one of the things I was going to mention about Wrigley Field is it's one of the oldest stadiums or fields in, I guess, the United States, correct?
Yep, I think second oldest behind Fenway.
So, one of the things that I always find funny, I see it on the internet sometimes, the people that have never been to a Cubs game before, and they get the seat right behind that huge pole. Have you ever seen people get those before?
The obstructed seating for sure. People, there's not a ton of them, but you can definitely occasionally get stuck behind a big metal beam underneath in the 200s.
So that's the one thing I've seen on the internet. Like, you have a bunch of vloggers who go around and they look at the different stadiums and they rank them 1 through 10. Some girl was ranking the MLB stadiums, and then she was saying that Wrigley Field was awesome. The vibes were great. It's an old stadium. It just sucks because it feels kind of old whenever you're sitting in some parts of it. But I kind of like think that's why it has like a special meaning to it. Just like Soldier Field for the Bears. I know there've been rumors that they're trying to move somewhere else, but it's that like old feeling you get, just like Fenway in Boston. You just get like that old Renaissance feeling, that the history that's been through there, and that's what I love about Wrigley Field.
Yeah, and the Ricketts family, the owners, have done actually a really good job, in my opinion, updating and modernizing Wrigley without losing the authentic feel of it being a 100-year-old stadium. So credit to them. I do think they've done a really good job, like keeping Wrigley up to date in terms of the technology times and kind of the accessibility of it, without it kind of losing its magic. So that's I've been impressed with ownership in that sense for sure.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel old when you walk in there. That's not really like what I was trying to say for those guys who are listening. It just has like that. I don't know. You just know that it's been there for a while. It doesn't feel like an old baseball stadium where things are falling in. It just sometimes it sucks when you sit right behind that pole. I've never done that before. Hopefully, I never do. Um, but yeah, I just thought it'd be funny to mention that for everyone who's
Yeah,
listening.
and you said the last time you've been there was like 2013, 2014.
I think it was 2014. I think
It
so.
Wrigley and the surrounding area are going to be unrecognizable to you in a good way.
Really?
Oh yeah,
So
they
has
have
it?
made.
So the surrounding area has changed that much?
Oh yeah, it will be a totally different experience for sure.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to get down there. I'm excited to see the Cubs play. Um, yeah, I'll definitely be the lookout for you. I'll try to mention all the guys. Hey, make sure you look out for Jonah. So, what do you usually sell at the games?
So it changes every game. The way we pick is we line up about an hour before the game in seniority order, with the guys who've been there the longest at the very front. If there, let's say there's 100 vendors at Wrigley, I don't know the exact number, but let's say there's around 100. I am probably like 75th in line, even though I've been doing it 9 years. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
still toward the end. So we go through and we pick what item and what section we're going to be in for that game. The guys at the very front obviously sell the same thing every single game in the same section. They're usually doing Bud Light and Goose Island down in the lower box seats in the hundreds. Um, for me, it kind of varies. I do a lot of analysis based on the things that I think of in my mind while I'm walking up to pick my assignment are attendance, weather, vendor competition, meaning how many other vendors are going to be selling the same product in my section. Um, and those things all kind of play into what I'm going to choose for the day. So I normally will do, like on a Saturday game, I'll sell some sort of alcohol. I'll do beer. I'll do neutral vodka seltzer. I'll do frozen margaritas, one of those. And then let's say it's like a Sunday day game, and I think a lot of kids are going to be there, maybe I do hot dogs or lemon chill. So it really varies. I kind of call myself a jack of all trades when it comes to vending. I sell a whole bunch of different products. Whatever I think I'm going to sell the most of, I will pick for that day. And a lot of times I make the right pick, and sometimes I don't. And it's always frustrating when I make a bad pick, but I do a lot of pregame analysis to try to avoid doing that.
Well, I didn't realize that it took like that much analysis to pick out what you were going to sell that day. I already thought they were just you just walk in, they're like, "Hey, you're selling this today." You're like, "Okay." I didn't know you actually got to choose the section, what you're selling. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I'd say 99% of the vendors do not do the kind of analysis that I do. I've got a whole spreadsheet with, game time temperature and wind directions and how long each game took to the seventh inning stretch. Um, but for me, it's fun and it's a way to keep track of things and try to make more informed decisions so I can sell a lot of the products and make a little money.
So answer me this. What is your favorite thing to sell and what is your least favorite thing to sell?
Favorite thing to sell is probably frozen margaritas. Mostly, here's a fun fact actually. It's not documented anywhere, but I was the first ever frozen margarita vendor at Wrigley Field.
Really?
Um, yes, there was a game 2 years ago when frozen margaritas became an option to sell, there was one spot in the entire stadium. None of the guys in front of me took it. I didn't know what I wanted to sell for the day, and my boss mentioned it, and I was like, "Huh, that sounds interesting. I will take a stab at it, and we'll see how it goes." So I was the first one to ever sell it. It was a trial game, and now we do vend frozen margaritas when it gets warm. So I still love doing it. It's just really fun. Can't go wrong with hot dogs. It's an easy sell. It's the most uncomfortable thing to carry, which is unfortunate. But if you're selling a lot of them quickly, it becomes a little less heavy. Least favorite things to sell are usually like water or soda when it's not super hot out. That was what I was doing a lot when I first started. When you don't have the seniority, you kind of pay your dues and sell the stuff that no one wants to sell. The first game I ever worked, I sold lemon chill upstairs in 2015 on like a very cold June day. It was like
God.
45 degrees, and I sold like 4 lemon chills the whole game. So it's never fun selling the stuff that isn't really moving, but like worst case, you just kind of walk around, you do your best, and you're at Wrigley Field mingling with Cubs fans. So even on the bad days, it's still good.
So is the hot dog thing that huge like box? It looks like yellow, and I think it has like maybe a strap or two, and it's just absolutely massive. Is that what you're talking about with the hot dogs?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's a big rectangular box that is just, it's tough to maneuver. It's probably a couple feet tall, I would say. I don't really, 2.5, 3 feet tall. So just a little awkward to carry up the steep stairs.
Wow. And then so like is the hot dog box like warm to keep the hot dogs warm? And then is like the drink carrier like you carried, like is that cold? Is that why you try to figure out is it how warm it is and how cold it is, depending on what you carry?
It's more the hot dog box is warmed, and the hot dogs do stay hot, which is good. I'll never sell a cold hot dog. That would be a crime. But the drink container, like if it's a 90-degree day, our drink trays, like they're not insulated or anything. It's kind of just like a tub. So
Oh,
a lot of
okay.
us will like bring bags so we can fill up ice and keep the beers cold, because I'll never sell a cold beer. That would also be a crime. Or sorry,
So
I'll never sell a warm
a
beer.
warm beer. So
Right.
never sell a cold hot dog, never sell a warm beer. Is that like when you guys getting ready to go out to the field to sell, is that like on a little sign and you slap it right before you go out there?
It should be. It really should be our mantra. Kind of like Ted Lasso. They have the believe sign in their office. We have don't sell warm beers, don't sell cold hot dogs. Give it a nice little smack before we head out onto the field.
There you go, man. Well, so I haven't watched a lot of Cubs games this year because right now it's kind of still NBA season. The Bulls obviously are not in the playoffs, but I watch basketball as my main sport. So, like, give me a little insight on how the Cubs are doing this year. Are we good? Are we going to potentially make the playoffs? How are our new guys doing on the Cubs this year?
Yeah, I'll happily give you a rundown. So we did a lot of moves in the offseason, obviously, as we kind of alluded to, like our core from the good old days isn't on the team anymore. And we got a lot of guys. Some actually they're all doing pretty well. So high level, I would say I'm pretty excited about this Cubs team. We hit for contact. We don't strike out a whole lot. And we got guys that can get on base and play defense. And the pitching has been pretty solid to start the year, especially our starting rotation. So I think we're 14-13 right now. We just had a heartbreaking series against the Marlins where we lost 3 one-run games. Our bullpen's blown a couple games this year. But other than that, like Cody Bellinger maybe is back to his old self. He's had a
Really?
great month. Oh, yeah. He's been phenomenal. Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner are holding down the middle infield and hitting for contact, and the power should come soon. And then we've got some veterans too that are doing decent and kind of providing where we need them to. Eric Hosmer has been decent. Trey Mancini's been decent. We have a lot of guys that were good like 3 or 4 years ago, and if they can return to their old selves, this could be a special ball club. And then we've got Patrick Wisdom just hitting home run after home run, and a great starting rotation led by Marcus Stroman and Justin Steele. And I don't know. We'll see. I'm hopeful. I think this team in a NL Central that seems to be potentially up for grabs, I think we could make a run and sneak into a playoff spot, maybe even a wild card slot. Who knows?
So you say that Cody Bellinger is back. Is he one of the main guys on the Cubs right now? Is and Swanson?
Yeah, in terms of big names, I would say it's kind of him and Dansby Swanson as the main guys. Also, I'm not saying that Cody Bellinger is back. I'm saying he might be back
Might be.
because
Okay.
I don't want to jinx it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, I think I just did. I was trying to speak it into existence. So
I'm cool with that.
I may have just jinxed it. So next time you vend, just don't think about what I said about Cody Bellinger being back. Well, I hope that the Cubs are good. Um, I enjoy watching baseball now, as weird as it sounds. I used to not like watching it, but with the new pitch clock, I like it. Do you like the new pitch clock?
Yeah, I think the pitch clock I think is good for the sport. I mean, game times are shorter, about a half hour. From a vendor perspective, though, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about much from like a vending and concessions perspective. It makes the game half an hour shorter. So people have half an hour less time to eat and drink and buy food. And that affects the vendors because we have half an hour less time to sell. What I will say though, and we're kind of seeing some teams start to extend alcohol sales into the eighth inning to combat the lost time of game time to kind of make it more accessible. My hope is that people will start to realize that if you get up from your seat to like go wait in a concession line or go to the bathroom or spend too much time out of your seat, you might miss a significant portion of the game with this new pitch clock and the speed that the game goes. So I'm hoping that people start to realize that and let the vendors do our jobs. We will bring you your food and drink. You stay seated, watch the new now shortened game, and it might work in our favor in that sense. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how it affects our income and things like that. But I do think it is really good for baseball to kind of modernize the game and like especially try to include the younger generation with our very short attention spans. A 2.5 hour game is a little bit easier to stomach than a 3 hour game. So
Yeah,
I think it's good.
I will say, like, whenever you went to a baseball game, like I said, I've been to Cubs games, I've been to Reds games before. It was kind of like an all day thing. Like you knew you were going to be there from this time to this time, and you really didn't have uh like a certain time you were probably going to get out of there. Some things I've seen online is that the new pitch clock makes the 999 challenge literally impossible. Are you familiar with the 999 challenge?
I am.
So for those listening who don't know, the 999 challenge is nine cold beers, 9 hot dogs, in 9 innings. And this guy I seen on TikTok, he tried it. I think he got to the fourth inning, and he was like, "This is literally impossible because of how fast the game is going, especially in those first couple of innings where usually, they're trying to get settled in. The pitchers are usually throwing, super fast, super hard because it's the very beginning. People are striking out, people are hitting ground balls, getting thrown out in the infield. So those first 2 innings could literally only last like maybe 20 or 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you go 1, 2, 3, and it's a 3 minute half inning. So yeah, they can fly.
It's crazy to me that also that you said don't get up and go to the concession stand, just wait for the vendors. I had never thought about that because I am guilty. I will get up from my seat and go get something, never thinking about, hey, there's probably going to be a vendor coming by here soon. So now,
Exactly.
do the vendors sell literally everything that the stadium has to offer?
We don't know. So there's definitely limited options in terms of what you can get to your seat. However, Wrigley has instituted kind of like an Uber Eats type system where you can also order directly to your seat if you wanted to get beers and hot dogs and a bag of peanuts at the same time.
Really?
So yep, it's through the MLB Ballpark app. There's a bunch of QR codes on every seat, and you scan it. You put your seat number in, and then one of my colleagues will deliver the order all at once. So as seat vendors just walking around, we sell only one product usually. But if you wanted to kind of place a bulk order, you could do that too.
So is that relatively new?
Yeah, I believe it started in 2021. I think was the first year right when we had limited capacity for COVID. I think is when they rolled that out. We also are entirely cashless now, so we have handheld
Really?
card machines. Yeah, whole stadium, including the vendors.
Wow. So if you would bring cash into Wrigley, it'd literally be useless.
There are reverse ATMs where you can load your cash onto a prepaid debit card and use that. But yeah, unless you wanted to tip your vendors a couple bucks in cash or your concessions workers, that's really the only reason. Everything else is cashless.
So we should carry cash just to tip the vendors and the concession people. So don't not bring cash to Wrigley is what you're saying.
Yeah, we always appreciate that. So that sounds like a good plan. You got a
Yeah,
few bucks lying around.
exactly. Well, so Jonah, you said you started creating content literally like opening day of this season, correct?
Yeah, like I think my first video was like March 22nd and opening day was the 30th. So it's been like 5 weeks.
So what made you want to start creating content as like a vendor for the Cubs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it's always just been about like sharing how special Wrigley is and my love for the Cubs. Sharing the stories of the older guys and kind of just giving people like an inside look at what I do has been really fun. And that was one of the main drivers of why I wanted to start creating content was because everyone knows what a vendor is. It's just it gives kind of like a cool little look into the behind the scenes stuff. It makes people feel more connected, and that's ultimately why I love baseball so much, and why I love the Cubs. And people have been, sending me messages from all over the country. I got a message today from the Philippines saying that my stuff came across his For You page on TikTok, and he, even though he doesn't live in the United States, like he's loved following me. I've had people that have said they feel like more connected to some of their relatives who were diehard Cubs fans that have passed away. I have even Sox and Cardinals fans commenting on this stuff,
Mm.
saying they let it be known that they are fans of a rival organization, but they're still loving the content.
Yeah.
And then there's just people that like have been seeing a video of mine of a vendor interview, let's say, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, that guy was my art teacher 30 years ago." So it's just like it's been really fun for me to just become like this medium of connection around the Cubs. And I'm super passionate about what I do. So that was kind of the mentality of why I started creating these videos. And I've really, really appreciated the support. And I think there's some exciting things coming down the road. So hoping I can just keep building on the momentum.
Well, you can definitely tell whenever you watch your videos. And I think that's why I like them so much that you are passionate about what you do. You enjoy what you do. And I think that's why everybody else watches them. I mean, you said you have like 18,000 people like following you on uh Instagram and then thousands and thousands of people following you on TikTok. Did you ever think like when you posted that first video like, hey, this could probably grow to a huge following?
Not really, honestly. So what happened was I also vend concerts at different venues in addition to Wrigley here. I sell merchandise for concerts at Soldier Field, sometimes the United Center. But the very last event of the year last year was a Harry Styles concert at the United Center, the last one that I worked. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to make like a day in the life of a Harry Styles concert merch vendor. I thought it would be cool. I thought people might be interested in that. So I made it. It got like 4,000 or 5,000 views on TikTok. And I was like, maybe there's a niche here. I could not have picked a worse time because it was literally my last event of the year. So I had to wait 6 months until opening day this season.
Yeah.
But I did come into the year kind of with the idea to create a bunch of content and share stories around Wrigley and the Cubs. But the momentum and the traction that it has gained, I did not expect it to be this fast. So it's been really fun and exciting for me. But yeah, we'll see where it can go. Honestly, I'm not. I'm driven in a sense to grow the followers, not just so I can say I have a bunch of followers, but just so, more people can experience a day in the life at Wrigley and really learn the stories of the guys that I work with and have grown to really love and be passionate about the Cubs and baseball with. So that's really just like my driving force, is to really, kind of honor the older guys in a way, and again, just make people feel more connected around baseball and the team that I love so much.
Yeah. So you're a vendor. You have a vendor account where you talk through like the day in the life and stuff, like you've said. And then you also have another side business. And I didn't know you had that until you posted that. I think it was a while ago. And I clicked on it and I was like, wow, that's interesting. So Jonah has a side business called Bracketology TV. I'll give all the links in the description below if you guys want to check it out. But what exactly is Bracketology TV?
Yeah, so bracketology is actually my main gig. Vending and content creation is the side job. So bracketology is a fantasy sports platform for reality television shows. So we provide fantasy football and March Madness style games for The Bachelor, Survivor, Big Brother, The Voice, RuPaul's Drag Race. And the goal with that, again, is just to connect passionate fans of reality television and make them feel more engaged with their shows and their friends. But you create, it's just like fantasy football. You create a league, you invite your friends, your family, your coworkers, and then you make weekly picks across 4 different game types that we offer, and check back after the episode to see your scores. So for me, I've been running bracketology for 18 months now. I'm the CEO and co-founder. I've got some other part-time co-founders, but I'm the only one that does it full-time. We're in the process right now of trying to raise some money so that we can improve our product and user experience and build a mobile application. And then I'll be able to hire some of my part-time co-founders full-time. But I'm super passionate about what I'm working on a day-to-day. And I've been lucky that my vending job kind of gives me the flexibility to do both, and make money at Wrigley in order to, keep a roof over my head before I start paying myself from the startup. But it's been really exciting. We've got a lot of traction, but you can check it out at bracketology.tv.
So how did you come up? Did you come up with that idea, or was it like you and your friends were like, hey, how funny would it be if like Survivor had like a fantasy football feel to it?
Yeah, I actually did not come up with the original idea. So one of my co-founders is the founder of a Bachelor franchise only fantasy platform called Batch Bracket. It was one of the first Bachelor fantasy platforms. She created it with a couple of her friends in 2016, and over the years they kind of just built it as a passion project. And they had tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people even use it over 6 years. And then in 2021, my best friend and roommate met the founder that I just mentioned at a networking event in Chicago. And I was listening to kind of his conversation with her, and I was like, I think we could scale this to other reality television shows. And as I mentioned, it was just a passion project for them. So we partnered up, and they kind of saw the vision that I did. And then we joined forces. And then in October of 2021, I left my corporate job and became the first and only employee and CEO. And then we rebranded from Batch Bracket to Bracketology.
Wow. So how big of a jump was that for you to leave like that secure corporate job to going up into, like you say, like this kind of passion project for you now doing, you say you like it. So how did you feel scared when you did it?
A little bit. I definitely had conversations with, my family and some of my mentors. But ultimately I felt a lot of support, especially from my cousins who kind of did the same thing of taking the leap from the corporate world and going into more of an entertainment startup feel. But I was 25 and I was still on my parents' health insurance, and I was like, you know what, like perfect time to take a risk. So I kind of always had the idea of wanting to create a business, and run a company. And I've always been passionate about entertainment and fantasy gaming and sports. So the opportunity just kind of came knocking, and I took the leap of faith, and we're really starting to legitimize ourselves, and we've got some really exciting things coming down the road. It's been a grind for sure, trying to work, a startup, and then also at Wrigley, and now also with content creation. I'm probably about to have the busiest summer of my existence, but it's a good busy because I love what I do in both areas. So I'm definitely excited to be where I'm at right now.
I would say probably the hardest thing about having like your own brand, I have the spin cycle. I really wouldn't consider it a brand, but kind of like a platform is the content creation. And I don't think people realize how much effort goes into content creation until you actually try to think of ways to, like, the other day I was thinking like, okay, like I need to post on my TikTok, I need to post on my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook page, my YouTube shorts. I want to start making a YouTube channel for my podcast. I was like, what else do I have to do? I was like, oh yeah, I gotta edit the podcast I did by myself on GarageBand, all this stuff. And it just kind of gets overwhelming. But that's the biggest part of growing your brand is that content creation, because people are always consuming content. Like we talked about at the beginning, before we started rolling, Gary V, he was always really passionate about you should post like 4 pieces of content per social media app per day. And I try to do that, and I'm sure you try to post as much as you can. But are you the only person who does social media content creation for bracketology?
Yep, I am. Yeah, so I make a bunch of rankings videos for the reality TV shows that we do fantasy games for. And yeah, you're right. Content creation is exhausting. I didn't necessarily think that my CEO duties would include content creation, but again, you're right. Like, it's great awareness. We've got like 3,000 followers on our company's TikTok account. And that's just me making TikToks about reality television. So I do spend a lot of time creating content, and obviously running every other part of the business as well from a CEO standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But I do enjoy it. I feel passionate about creating videos and kind of sharing my opinions and interacting with people. But it definitely can get tiresome at times when you're like, oh God, I really have to make a TikTok today. I can't come up with an idea for content. So it's a bit exhausting in that realm, but it end up the benefits really kind of outweigh that.
Yeah, I love creating content. I love thinking of something and then kind of putting, the pen to paper, so to speak. I was up last night. I think I didn't go to bed till like 2 or 3 in the morning because I was sitting at my right here, and I was like, okay, like let me write out my to-do list. I want to create this stuff for tomorrow. And then like I looked at the clock and I was like, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I was like, you have to embrace that grind. You just gotta go with the flow, and knowing that like when you put in the hours like that, eventually it's going to pay off. And I think that's what I love about just the creating content portion of it, is just knowing that you're the one who created it. And then when people give you awesome feedback, it just kind of feeds, I don't want to say the ego, but it makes you feel good that you're providing something people can enjoy.
100%. That's it's a great feeling. And I guess like everything I do, I kind of am just investing in myself. And it's rewarding for sure to kind of be able to see the tangible benefits of hard work that you're putting in kind of pay off, and see people enjoying what you're producing and feeling a sense of community around it.
Yeah. And one last thing, Jonah, before we conclude this podcast, I asked someone else this the other day, so I'm going to ask you, as I would say, professional hot dog guy, is a hot dog a sandwich?
It's a great question. I personally think a hot dog is a sandwich.
Really?
Um, anything sandwiched between anything sandwiched between 2 pieces of bread is a sandwich. I also think, or 2 sides of bread. I also think a taco is a type of sandwich. I don't know. It might be a controversial take,
I
but I
think
think
that I think that was controversial. I think
yeah,
you may get some DMs over that.
it might be. Listen, I'm ready to have a healthy debate. But when you think about it, like, a hamburger is also a sandwich, because so would a hot dog not be a sandwich because a bun can be connected. Like it's just a piece of meat in between a piece of bread. If you
See,
go ahead.
you say that, and that made me think when you go to Subway and they don't cut the bread fully in half, if you just place a hot dog in there, is that a sandwich?
That's what I'm saying.
You blew my mind.
Yeah,
That's all
it's
I
in the
need,
word.
Jonah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
that's
in the
all
word.
that's all I needed.
We
I'm on the hot dog as a sandwich side now. I was on hot dog is not a sandwich. It is now a sandwich. Thank you for that.
welcome aboard. Thanks for keeping an open mind. Well, the taco as a sandwich thing, we'll see. That might be a little more
I
controversial and take
I
some
think
extra
you better
time.
go back to the drawing board on that one.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I feel like a sandwich, like we talked about, is a sandwich, and then a taco is maybe its own thing, in my opinion.
I think that a taco might fall. I think the sandwich category is broader than I think we really give it credit for.
Okay,
Um,
so there,
so,
yes, it's
so like
like
a burger, I would say is different. You know, it's like a square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square unless it's actually a square. Um, that's how I feel about the sandwich thing. Like a sandwich can't be a burger, but every burger is a type of sandwich.
gosh, I feel like I'm in high school algebra again.
Yeah, I'm sorry to kind of implement some geometry proofs in here after our discussion of baseball and
Yeah,
ballpark food.
we went from like guy like sports entertainment, and now we're talking about is a hot dog a sandwich, and you try to bring in like math and geometry in it, and I just think it's getting too late for me to do that.
That's very fair. But these are the important discussions that need to be had.
Exactly, man. Hey, Jonah, thank you so much for coming on the spin cycle. If anybody wants to have a link to Jonah's social media, I will. You have a link tree, don't you?
Do have a link tree.
Okay, I'll
Yep.
post the link tree for Jonah's personal social media, also Bracketology TV in the description. I'll also hook it up with the clips I make for this podcast on the social media sites that I post on. But Jonah, thank you so much again for coming on. I truly, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a blast. As you can tell, I loved kind of talking about Wrigley and the Cubs, and I'm looking forward to all the angry DMs I get about sandwich debates. But thanks again for having me on. It was a ton of fun.
My pleasure, man. Hey, take it easy on them, guys. Have a great one.